Up next, a new discovery on some old technology.
My Apple is my manager.
There are more people in more places doing more things with apples than with any other personal computer in the world. And of all these people using apples, most had never touched a computer before.
This is my apple.
Apple, the most personal computer.
That's an old Apple computer ad from 1982. We grabbed the audio because, well, what's old is new again. Vintage computers have become very collectible during the pandemic. Winnipegger Dan Hune is one of the people who's been amassing a collection of them and posting videos online. Hi, Dan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. Fun to listen to that ad, hey?
It is. It's really interesting hearing old advertisements.
Are we talking about that vintage of computers, like 80s Apples, and what's hip right now?
Yeah, well, Apple is such a popular company right now. Obviously, the iPhone is like a flagship phone all over the world. And I think as a result of that popularity, it's had people kind of thinking, well, I wonder what this company was doing when I was born, or, when my dad was younger, or that sort of thing. And I think a lot of that is starting to build this trend, and a lot of people are watching videos about it online, and it's ranging all the way from, the early 80s all the way to stuff that was out even 5 or 10 years ago. Things that aren't supported directly by Apple anymore tend to be the stuff that's more collectible.
And beyond Apple, what else are you seeing that's become collectible when it comes to old computers?
There's, classic IBMs are starting to see really high prices. And it's all being more or less fueled by the fact that people are at home right now and they have a little bit of extra money if they have a stimulus check in some cases, obviously not in every case. And so they're thinking, what was that first computer that we had when we just got the internet at home? Or, things like that. So IBMs are popular, Apple and Macintoshes are popular, Tandies are popular, like the old Radio Shack computers. It's just, everything is so different from that era. I think that's where the real interest is.
You talked about, you alluded to the fact that people might have money to spend on this. What can some of these old computers be worth?
Well, some of them are getting really crazy. So these things used to largely be free or garbage, as I describe them, for a very long time. People would clear out their house, or maybe their grandma was downsizing and got rid of her old computer that she had for a long time. And those used to just be more or less recycling. And now, like an Apple Lisa, for example, is selling for $5,000-$6,000, depending on the condition. Some of the ones that I had picked up a couple of years ago for $50, and some of them are worth $500, $600. It's really, really evolving. I think the only thing that's difficult about it is that they're all so heavy.
You mentioned the Apple, did you say Lisa?
Yes, the Apple Lisa. That is a very classic Apple computer. If you've ever seen the movie about Steve Jobs, it's one of the major plot points about how he designs a computer named after his daughter. But the Lisa was a very strange-looking computer from the 80s that ended up being a failure for a number of reasons, but it couldn't perform. It was very interesting looking, and it's scarce because it didn't do very well.
How popular are they locally? Like, what have you noticed online, and what have you seen for people buying and selling?
So the people who like these computers, they really like them. So locally, there's a handful of us. There's probably about 15 or 20 people. It's actually funny. We all kind of know who each other are. We have a group on Facebook. And whenever something old comes up for sale or something rare, usually people are making offers immediately. I'll reach out to the person because I'll know that these other guys are probably already doing it. And then if I don't get it, I'll post in the group and say, hey, who got the, whatever it was that we were just looking at. And it's normally one of those guys.
Tell me how you got interested in this.
Yeah, so I work on a computer. I work in marketing and communications. And so I spend a lot of time at home just working on projects, and I'll watch videos or listen to the podcasts or whatever it is. And I found myself gravitating toward the history of the computer. I just found the story really fascinating, and the fact that it's such a instrumental or an important instrument in our lives. And after 2 years of watching these, I just kind of started thinking, I wonder if they have these computers locally. I wonder if I could find them if I spent some time on a buy sell or anything like that. And that's kind of how I got into it. The first thing I bought was a Macintosh SE and a Windows 98 server tower.
Sexy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And after that, I was hooked. And now my apartment looks like a weird 90s computer store, but I love it.
You nodded at the beginning of the interview to nostalgia being one of the reasons that somebody might, get into this and why people are buying now. But what are the other reasons, like when you look at who's in the group that is doing this with you in Winnipeg?
I think a lot of it are people discovering these machines online. For the guys maybe in their 40s and a little bit older, these are machines they used to work with. So for them, it's very nostalgic to turn them on, run the old software, that sort of thing. And then there's some people in town who are really young. I mean, there's people who are, 18 and younger who are getting into this sort of thing and collecting old machines. So for them, it can't be nostalgia. It has to be just an interest.
How useful are they?
Well, that's kind of like the big secret you don't want to let out. Is there a lot of them are not very useful. There are some that are, and they're like. For example, it's only 11 years old, but the MacBook that I use is an old 2010 MacBook that I got that didn't turn on and had a broken screen, like everything. And I just fixed it and added more RAM and that sort of stuff. Once you start getting back into what are called the beige Macs, the ones from the 90s and the 80s, it's a lot harder to get things done on them. You can always do word processing. If you're a writer, it's a great sort of trip back in time. It's not quite a typewriter, but it's not a new machine. It's right in the middle. You want to play some games from the era, that's doable too. But in reality, you're probably not going to be spending all day on these things. And a lot of them struggle to just use the internet. So unless you have the right tools, there's probably not a ton that you're going to do with them.
Well, stay on the hunt. And thank you so much for telling us about this today. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Dan Hewen, a vintage computer collector in Winnipeg. And if you want to check out some of the computers in his videos, the YouTube channel is a Canadian Computer Collector. So we've asked you on Facebook this morning because of Dan's interview and saying that all kinds of people are getting interested in this no matter your age. What favorite piece of old tech do you miss and why? What do you wish you'd kept is how I put it on my Facebook page. Britt Patrick wrote this in, and obviously could have been friends with Abby back in the day, because Abby also misses her Game Boy. She had the Game Boy Color. I'm not sure they had the funky ones that came out in teal and purple. She says it had a lot of sentimental meaning to me because I grew up on a farm. Most of my memories from being a kid are working. So playing Pokemon's one of the few memories of playing I have, and then my stuffed animals. But my kids now are here, and I'd like to share this with them. So she wished she kept that piece of old tech to have with them. Thanks for writing, Britt. Glenn Finlayson says, my cassette tape player, too many tapes that are now better known as dust collectors for me. Kat Rother wrote in with a video attached of what she loved and misses. She says, I loved this gadget. It belonged to my best friend in England, so I could bring it with me when I moved to Canada. It might be the reason I was multiplying by the age of 5. And the old piece of tech she wishes she kept is the vintage 1976 Little Professor calculator. Can you see that in your head? As soon as I Googled it, I knew what she was talking about. It's a small calculator. It's yellow. And the face of it has actually almost like a professor's face on it. So there's big blue eyes at the top and a mustache right in the front of the little computer. And finally, Barb Enders weighing in, I liked our Intellivision game system. Intellivision. I haven't heard that word in years. So what piece of old tech do you wish you kept and why? And if you're a younger collector and you're getting into this, as we heard in our interview, love to hear why you're into that too. You can weigh in on my Facebook page, Marcy Marcusa Online.